and welcome to Kids Corner at Calvary Chapel, Olympia. Hey there, kids, and welcome to Kids Corner.
Maddie, what are you doing? I'm the one that introduces the show each week.
Yes you do, but I would like a chance to introduce it this week, because you do it every week, and that gives you way too much power.
You've got to be kidding me. Fine. You introduce the show this week.
Hi there, kids. Welcome to Kids Corner at Calvary Chapel, Olympia. I'm your all-powerful ruler, King Matthew. And this is my servant, Madeline. But you can call us King Maddie and Servant Maddie.
Matthew, what are you doing?
I'm taking my rightful place as the ruler over this broadcast.
Fine. All-powerful ruler, Maddie. Tell us, what is this week's Bible lesson about?
That is very easy to answer. It is the one about the thing we said last week. I don't know.
See, Maddie, we need each other. Let me help with this part.
That's right. I command you, Servant Madeline, to introduce the Bible story.
Fine. This week, we're going to hear a story called Joseph Sent to Egypt. And in it, we're going to learn that Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world.
Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world?
That's right. Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world. You sure picked a great week to be ruler over this broadcast.
Are you sure that's what we're learning this week?
Absolutely sure. Now let's do the mystery bag, and then we can head on over to Rhema Ryan to hear more about it.
Hey, yeah, mystery bag time.
How about you do the honors?
Wow, cool, no way. Okay, kids, remember, you can find our Calvary Kids Instagram page, that's at CCO Kids, to comment what you think is inside the mystery bag this week. Just get your parents' permission to find the most recent post and comment what you think the mysterious item is. And for everyone who guesses, we will give you a shout out next week.
Yes, and we have some amazing shout outs this week. Some of our favorite guesses were Charlotte. She guessed that there was a stuffed animal inside the bag. And Addie guessed that it was fuzzy slime. We love that. But the closest to getting it right were James and Peter. They guessed that there was a blanket inside this bag. And as you all know, it was a white piece of fabric to represent a white flag of surrender. So great job everyone with your guesses. We loved reading them and we cannot wait to see what you guess this week. So with that, why don't we start looking at our mystery bag? Oh, it is, doesn't seem to, it's not heavy, but it seems pretty sizable.
Ow, is this some kind of joke?
No, why?
It's sharp. There's like spikes in here. It's like a rose bush, but these things are much longer than rose bushes.
Oh, I'm sorry, that sounds painful.
Yeah, it kind of goes around in a circle. Oh, wow, I almost got stuck there. But whatever it is, I hope I don't ever touch it again.
Well, we can't wait to see what you guys think it is. So go ahead, head on over to our Calvary Kids Instagram page and tell us what you think is there. And for now, we'll head on over to Rhema Ryan for our Bible verse.
Hey there, kids. I'm Rhema Ryan, and I have a word of God for you. Today's story is called Joseph Sent to Egypt, and a lot of bad things happen to Joseph in this story. But God ends up raising him up to a position of power. That should remind us that Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world. Now, like I said, a lot of bad things happened to Joseph. For one thing, his own brothers sold him as a slave, and then he was thrown in prison for something he didn't even do. But through it all, Joseph trusted God, and God did raise him up to be the second most powerful person in all of Egypt. That reminds me of today's Bible verse, which comes from Philippians chapter 2, and it's verses 6 through 9. Now, this is talking about Jesus, but as you listen, see if you see anything that sounds like our story today, the story of Joseph. It says, Jesus, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name. You guys, the story of Joseph is one that points us to Jesus. For one thing, these verses say that Jesus humbled himself and became a servant. So also, Joseph was a servant. And Jesus gave up his life. He was so much a servant, he was obedient to the point of death. And then God raised him up to life to be king over all things. And Joseph, too, he came to his lowest point when he was thrown in prison. But then God raised him up to be a ruler over Egypt, ruler over the known world at that time. So, Maddie, you should probably lose that crown. And remember, kids, as you're listening to our story today, remember that Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world.
Did you hear that, kids? Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world. Wow, I guess I shouldn't have been so upset about being your servant, Maddie.
Yeah, you're right, Maddie, and I really shouldn't have tried to make you serve me. You know, let's just work together and help each other out from now on. After all, Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world.
That's right. Let's say it one more time.
Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world. Now, let's get into our Bible story, kids. Maddie, would you like to do the honors and tell it?
Thank you, Maddie. I'd love to. Let's begin. Jacob was home in Canaan, the land that God had promised to Abraham and his family. Jacob had 12 sons, but his favorite son was Joseph. Jacob gave Joseph a special robe. The other brothers hated Joseph. One day, Joseph shared with his brothers a dream he had had.
What a crazy dream! Hey brothers, wait until you hear about this crazy dream that I had! Oh, hi there brothers. You are not going to believe what just happened to me. I was dreaming and we were all binding hay in the fields. And then all of a sudden, my grain stood up and your grain bowed down to my grain.
Then Joseph had another dream.
Brothers! Oh, there you are, brothers. I had another amazing dream last night.
Oh boy, we can't wait to hear this.
Well, this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowed down.
Joseph's dreams meant something. Maddie, do you want to tell the kids what they meant?
Wow, yeah, thanks, Maddie. Yeah, Joseph's dreams meant that someday Joseph's family was going to bow down to him.
Sometime later, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, who were tending sheep. When the brothers saw Joseph coming, they decided to sell him to the slave traders. But they told their father he had died. Joseph was sold as a slave into Egypt to a man named Potiphar. God was with Joseph, and he blessed him in everything he did. Potiphar realized that, so he put Joseph in charge of everything he owned.
Yeah, and then Potiphar's wife, who was not a great person, she lied to her husband about Joseph and said he did something that he didn't do. Potiphar believed his wife, and then he threw Joseph in prison even though he was completely innocent.
Yeah, but even while Joseph was in prison, God was with him, and God blessed him. The jail warden put Joseph in charge of the other prisoners, and God made Joseph very successful. Two of the prisoners Joseph cared for were Pharaoh's cupbearer and Pharaoh's baker. They both had dreams that startled them. Joseph told them what their dreams meant.
Well, cupbearer, good news. In 3 days' time, Pharaoh is going to restore you to your old position as royal cupbearer.
Sweet!
Baker, not so good news. In 3 days' time, you're going to die.
No!
Cupbearer, please remember me when you go back. Tell Pharaoh that I am innocent and shouldn't be in here.
The cupbearer did serve Pharaoh again, but he forgot about Joseph for 2 years. Then, Pharaoh had a couple of dreams. He dreamed that 7 skinny cows ate 7 fat cows. Then he dreamed that 7 fat heads of grain got eaten by 7 thin heads of grain. And nobody knew what the dreams meant. But that's when the cupbearer remembered Joseph. And God showed Joseph what the dreams meant, and Joseph told Pharaoh.
The dreams represent 7 years of lots of food, followed by 7 years of no food. You should pick someone to save the food during the good years so that you'll have food to eat during the bad years.
Pharaoh realized that God was with Joseph, so he made him the second most powerful ruler in all of Egypt. Nobody was more powerful than Joseph, except for Pharaoh. Joseph stored away food during the 7 years of plenty, so that during the 7 years of famine, people could come to him and buy grain.
So Joseph was able to keep tons of people alive during the famine. And this story reminds us that Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world.
That's right. Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world. Now let's go see what's in that mystery bag.
And the mystery bag item is...
It's a crown of thorns. When Jesus died on the cross, the soldiers put a crown of thorns on his head to make fun of the fact that he was king of the world.
So that crown of thorns reminds us that Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world.
I am so grateful that my Father in heaven loves me that much.
Me too. Let's say it together again, one more time. Jesus gave up his position of power to rescue the world.
Well, kids, thank you so much for joining us again this week for our episode of Calvary Kids Corner. We look forward to seeing you again next week when we will learn the story called Joseph's Dreams Came True. See you next week.